Back in October, a pedestrian in San Francisco was dragged 20 feet by a self-driving RoboTaxi operated by Cruise Company. It appears that Cruise has now entered into a settlement agreement with that pedestrian. Let's have a look.
To my left over there, you can see the Cruise vehicle that was involved in this. We're told that around 9:30 this evening, a female pedestrian was crossing the street when she was struck by that Cruise vehicle. We are told that no one was inside the Cruise vehicle. There was no driver behind the wheel, and there were no passengers inside that Cruise vehicle. But the female pedestrian becoming trapped underneath of that vehicle, trapped under the left axle.
Rescuers quickly were able to contact the vehicle operator via the voice controls inside, disable the vehicle to a stop, and use heavy rescue tools from our ladder trucks and rescue squad, including the Jaws of Life, to lift the vehicle off of the victim and pull her to safety. What I can tell you is that she suffered multiple traumatic injuries as a result of this incident. The paramedics stabilized as best they could on scene, and she was transported to the local trauma center.
So this article comes to us from Fortune.com, and it says that Cruise, the self-driving robotaxi company owned by General Motors, reached a settlement with the pedestrian who was dragged by one of its vehicles last fall. The settlement was between $8 and $12 million. That's according to Fortune. The settlement agreement is not public. So oftentimes in these lawsuits, the settlement negotiations and the settlement agreements are not made public, and they're behind a non-disclosure agreement that is embedded in the settlement agreement, a confidentiality covenant of some sort that makes it so that neither the plaintiff nor the defendant can talk about what the settlement is. And they do this to kind of hide the facts of the case and to hide how much was awarded. Well, apparently somebody that has knowledge of these settlement negotiations revealed the fact that the settlement was somewhere between $8 and $12 million. So people are saying that this woman settled for upwards of $8 million. Getting back to the article, the accident itself took place in the evening on October 2nd, when a pedestrian who was crossing the road in San Francisco was struck in a hit and run by another vehicle, then subsequently dragged for 20 feet by one of Cruise's autonomous robotaxis. Regulators determined Cruise had not been forthcoming enough with them about the incident and ordered Cruise to halt its taxi service in San Francisco. Cruise subsequently pulled all of its vehicles off the road across the U.S., and it is just now starting to reintroduce its robotaxi fleet back on the roads. They're doing so in Arizona, and they're doing it with drivers inside of these self-driving vehicles just to make sure that everything is safe this time. The current condition of the pedestrian remains unknown. A representative from Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, where the pedestrian was taken after the incident in critical condition, said that the pedestrian had been discharged but declined to share any further information. The San Francisco Police Department said it continues to investigate the incident. So the fact that the San Francisco PD is still investigating means that this matter may not be fully resolved for Cruise Company or for General Motors for that matter. But the fact that they reached a settlement agreement and we don't know the status of the pedestrian as far as her health is concerned, and the fact that the settlement agreement was for upwards of $8 million tells me two things. One, the company obviously wanted to bring this matter to a close and get out of any potential liability that it had, kind of put a cap on it. So they settled. But this is a relatively new area of the law. And if this pedestrian was to be able to get into discovery into exactly what Cruise and General Motors knew about the safety of the vehicle, and when they knew it, then we could have seen that Cruise knew that this vehicle was likely to mistake a pedestrian for some other hazard in the road, and therefore make the decision to drive over the pedestrian and drag that pedestrian. And there's a couple of reasons that I say that discovery might have led to that. One is that in this case, it likely would have been a little tricky to determine exactly what the pedestrian's damages were as attributable to Cruise, because as the article said, this woman was involved in a hit and run prior to the Cruise vehicle driving over her and then dragging her for that 20 feet. So at trial, the plaintiff would have to demonstrate what injuries were attributable to the initial hit and run, and what if her injuries were attributable to the cruise vehicle dragging her for 20 feet. And that might have been a little difficult to parse out. So there is some indication that Cruz had a better case on his hand than if it had just driven into a woman and done the initial hit and then dragged her for the 20 feet, because then all of the damages would be attributable to Cruz. The second thing is that this just happened in October, and it's now May 16th, and we already have a settlement agreement, which tells me that Cruz likely knows what information they have and what could come out during discovery. And they probably want to guard against that information coming out because they don't want to give potential future plaintiffs a roadmap as to how to prove liability against Cruz. So those are the reasons I think that this $8 to $12 million settlement agreement is likely the result of Cruz making some decisions as to not wanting to get into discovery, more so than any potential damages that the plaintiff may have incurred as a result of this incident, not to downplay any injuries that she does have. That's my take on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. For now, my name is Nathan Saunders, and this is The Legal Good.